Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I am Munib Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the top stories first. In Myanmar, security forces have killed 7 demonstrators in towns of Weltlet and Pakint and northern eastern Shan State. Thousands of protesters have come back to the streets against the military coup as it enters its 4th month. According to an advocacy group, security forces have killed at least 759 protesters in the crackdown on dissent. In Afghanistan, at least 9 people have died and 14 others injured after a fire broke out at a fuel station in Kabul. The Interior Ministry says the blaze engulfed dozens of tanker trucks and damaged several houses nearby. A spokesperson for the ministry says authorities are investigating the cause of the fire. India has reported a record of nearly 3,700 coronavirus deaths and over 392,000 cases in a day. Pakistan has banned inbound pedestrian movement from Afghanistan and Iran for 2 weeks over the emergence of coronavirus variants in the region. The ban will take effect on the 5th of May as the country tries to contain a surge in infections. Globally, the virus has infected over 152 million people and has claimed nearly 3.2 million lives, including 18,070 in Pakistan. Britain says the G7 countries are looking to build a rapid response mechanism to counter Russian propaganda and disinformation. In an interview, Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said the mechanism will generate a joint response rather than individual rebuttals. Britain will chair the next summit of the world's 7 richest countries that is scheduled for June. Iran's foreign minister has apologized for comments that were leaked to the public last week, creating a firestorm in Iran ahead of presidential elections in June. The recordings of Javad Zarif included frank comments on late Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, who was killed by a U.S. drone strike in 2020. President Rouhani has already ordered a probe into the leaked tape. And in football, Borussia Dortmund beat Holstein Kiel 5-0 to reach the final of the German Cup. Dortmund struck 4 times in 16 minutes in the first half, including a brace from Giovanni Reina to seal their win. They will now clash with RB Leipzig in the final on May 13th in Berlin. These were the top stories. News in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. We'll start from Myanmar, where security forces have killed 7 demonstrators in the towns of Wetlet and Paikant and in northeast Shan State. Thousands of protesters have come back to the streets against the military coup as it enters its 4th month. Activists also gathered in the second city of Mandalay, the central town of Mektila and Dai Wei in the south. The protests are coordinated with Burmese expatriates to mark what organizers called the Global Myanmar Spring Revolution. The organizers said protests will be held in 37 cities of 18 countries at the same time. According to an advocacy group, security forces have killed at least 759 protesters in the crackdown on dissent. Now, in Afghanistan, at least 9 people have died and 14 others injured after a fire broke out at a fuel station in Kabul. The Interior Ministry says the blaze engulfed dozens of tanker trucks and damaged several houses nearby. A spokesperson for the ministry says authorities are investigating the cause of the fire. Meanwhile, in southern Zabul province, 3 police officers have been killed and 2 others injured in a checkpost attack by the Taliban. Authorities say 9 Taliban fighters were also killed during the clashes. Now, Britain says the G7 countries are looking to build a rapid response mechanism to counter Russian propaganda and disinformation. In an interview, Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said the mechanism will generate a joint response rather than individual rebuttals. Raab also said some of the barriers between the G7 and other like-minded countries needed to be broken down. He added so that there could be a broader network of allies that stood up for open markets, and the next summit of the world's 7 richest countries will be chaired by Britain and is scheduled for June. Now, Iran's foreign minister has apologized for recording the comments that were leaked to the public last week. The recordings related to frank remarks about the grasp of hardliners on Iran's internal and external affairs, among other things. The 7-hour-long audio also discusses the influential role of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards and its leader, the late General Qasem Soleimani. In an Instagram post, the foreign minister said he hoped the people of Iran and General Soleimani's family would forgive him, and that if he knew even a sentence of the audio would be leaked, he would never have recorded it. Now, Russia's ambassador to the United Nations nuclear watchdog, Mikhail Ulyanov, says the talks aimed at restoring the 2015 deal will resume on Friday. He was speaking to reporters after a meeting of the remaining parties to deal in Vienna. Ulyanov said the talks are moving in the right direction and the final outcome is expected in a few weeks. Meanwhile, Iran's chief negotiator Abbas Araghchi called for a lifting of U.S. sanctions on Tehran based on agreement reached so far. He said the talks are more mature and both sides have started to work on a draft. Earlier, the U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan had said negotiations are in an unclear place. Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan have begun withdrawing servicemen and military equipment from the zone of conflict on the border. Earlier, the two countries agreed on a complete ceasefire after reports of fresh shooting and troops buildup. Kyrgyzstan Border Guard Service says no incidents or shootings have been recorded since the truce. Clashes broke out between the two countries on April 28th over a water reservoir that both claim as their own. According to Human Rights Watch, 40 people were killed and many others were injured in the fighting. Moving on now, the coalition in Yemen says it has destroyed an explosive-laden drone launched by Houthi rebels. In a statement, the coalition said the drone was aimed at southern Khamis Mushat city of Saudi Arabia. But Houthis claim the drone accurately hit the target at King Khalid Air Base in the city. The group has kept up cross-border attacks on Saudi cities after Riyadh last month presented a ceasefire proposal. The Houthis said the deal did not go far enough in fully lifting a sea and air blockade on territories they hold. North Korea has warned the United States of a corresponding response to what it called Washington's hostile policies towards Pyongyang. Earlier, U.S. President Joe Biden said Washington's policy will not focus on achieving a grand bargain with Pyongyang. North Korea's foreign ministry called Biden's comments about its nuclear program intolerable and a big blunder. In a statement, the ministry said U.S. deterrence is just a means for posing nuclear threats to North Korea. Pyongyang warned that Washington will find itself in a very grave situation if it would not stop. Meanwhile, North Korean leader's sister Kim Yo-jong has warned South Korea of an anti-Pyongyang leaflets issue. In a statement, Kim said Seoul failed to stop the reckless acts. Somalia's parliament has voted to cancel a 2-year presidential term and extension. The move will help in ending an armed standoff in the capital, Mogadishu. In a speech following the vote, Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble ordered the army to return to barracks. Roble also urged politicians to avoid inciting violence. Ahead of the vote, President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo said he was directing his premier to begin preparations for the election. His term expired in February, but without a new crop of lawmakers, Parliament was unable to choose a president. Last month, the lower house approved the term extension, but the Senate rejected it. Militants have killed 19 people in attacks on 2 villages in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Local authorities said victims of the communal violence near Benai included 10 soldiers. They said unknown assailants also shot dead an influential imam of Benai while he was offering evening prayer. The attacks come after President Fili Tshisekedi declared a state of siege in North Kivu and Ituri provinces amid rising violence. An estimated 122 armed groups of varying sizes operate in mineral-rich eastern DRC. The violent clashes have killed hundreds since the start of 2021 and displaced more than 1.5 million people. India has reported a record of nearly 3,700 deaths from COVID-19 overnight and more than 392,000 cases. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3 million lives and infected over 151 million people. More about the pandemic in this report.
The vaccine rollout is falling behind schedule due to high demand as it continues to expose the stark economic divisions of the world. Mexico says the U.S. will probably send it more doses of AstraZeneca vaccine, as the company admitted its next supply to the South American country will be delayed substantially. Meanwhile, hundreds of Brazilians took to the streets of São Paulo to show their support for President Jair Bolsonaro, who has been criticized for his handling of the pandemic.
Everyone, every family is suffering from this pandemic. Everyone is losing loved ones. I have already lost one, but we can't stop. We have to work. We need to deal with the situation.
The virus continues to ravage India with a staggering number of cases and deaths every day. The country has started the third phase of its inoculation drive, but the financial center, Mumbai, only offered limited vaccinations due to a shortage of doses. Meanwhile, France and Germany are the latest countries to send aid to India.
It's a very important package because it's not only a response to short-term needs, but it's also equipment that will provide autonomy for Indian hospitals. Each of these units can provide oxygen during more than 12 years to a 250-bed hospital in India. So it will also contribute to build health capacity in India.
Australia's fourth largest city, Perth, now faces prospects of its second snap lockdown in 2 weeks after detection of a new cluster. Meanwhile, in China, 15 more cases of the new coronavirus were detected over the past 24 hours.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, authorities have banned inbound pedestrian movement from Afghanistan and Iran for 2 weeks over the emergence of coronavirus variants in the region. The ban will take effect on the 5th of May as the country tries to contain a surge in infections. The country registered 113 deaths and over 4,400 infections in the past 24 hours. The nationwide death toll has now crossed the 18,000 mark. Nearly 830,000 contracted the virus so far since the first case was reported in February last year. More than 722,000 people have recovered. In India, polling officials have started counting votes in 5 states from elections held in March and early April. The counting of votes in Assam and West Bengal, among other states, is scheduled to end later today. While the ruling BJP is seeking to consolidate its power, the opposition Congress Party hopes to regain political turf. Over 1,000 election observers will conduct the counts. Most of the votes were cast in March, but polling in some constituencies continued through April. More news coming up in this news bulletin after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, in the UK, police have arrested 9 people over taking part in the Kill the Bill protest in central London. In a statement, the police said officers were continuing to engage with the protesters. More than 1,000 gathered against a proposed law they say would give police extra powers to curb protests. They demanded that the government reverse the planned legislation. Similar protests also took place in other cities across England and Wales, including Bristol. Oscar-winning actress Olympia Dukakis has died at the age of 89. In a Facebook post, her brother said she passed away after months of failing health. Dukakis started acting in the 1960s and performed in a number of films and TV series. She entered the spotlight at the age of 56 with her role in Moonstruck, for which she also won an Academy Award. Dukakis was also known for her role as a wealthy widow in Steel Magnolias. She was nominated 3 times for Emmy Awards for TV roles. Now, NASA's SpaceX Crew 1 mission has returned safely to Earth from the International Space Station. The agency says the crew includes 1 Japanese and 3 American astronauts. The capsule, named Resilience, splashed down in darkness off the coast of Panama City in the U.S. state of Florida. Its return marks the end of the first crew rotating mission to the station by the Crew Dragon spacecraft. It is the first night splashdown of a U.S. crewed spacecraft since Apollo 8 pre-dawn returned in the Pacific Ocean in December 1968. The mission was part of NASA's fledgling public-private partnership with SpaceX. Now, in the Netherlands, retired shopkeepers Lees Lutz and Harry Dekkers have received the keys to the country's first 3D printed house. The bungalow was printed in 24 parts in a nearby factory before being assembled on a plot in Eindhoven. More details in this report. The new tenants of the first 3D printed house in the Netherlands took a tour of the 2-bedroom concrete bungalow. They admired its undulating walls and sober grey aesthetic, which designers say are meant to evoke a large boulder.
I find it just pretty. An irregularity in the wall, it's like there was a stutter here and then the printing went on. It is really pretty. We feel very good here. I find the colors magnificent. The interior's colors are very pure. It is very good.
Grooves where the printer shuttled back and forth can be seen clearly on the walls of the 94 square meter building.
With this small construction behind us, I think a big step has been taken today towards a high-quality construction industry. With this technology, that is to say, digitalization technology, we have greatly contributed to bringing more versatility, sustainability and health to the construction industry.
Designers say the house fully complies with Dutch building standards. It is the first of 5 in what they dub Project Milestone, with designs set to become more sophisticated as they build on the knowledge gained. And the Bonhams Auction House in New York City is set to sell the work of Pablo Picasso, Camille Pissarro and Yayoi Kusama. The Impressionist and Modern Art sale is scheduled for May 13 and the Kusama sale is scheduled for May 12th. Pablo Picasso's painting Fermou Béarmauve, a portrait of his lover Marie Therese Waltenot, has not been seen publicly since 1984. It is ready to be auctioned and has a pre-sale estimate of $10 to $15 million. The auction also includes Camille Pissarro's La Rosa, a painting of his Dutch servant, one of his most exquisite works. Pissarro's painting is reported to have a pre-sale estimate of $1.5 to $2 million. Also, a never-before-seen collection of his works by Yayoi Kusama will hit the auction block. Kusama's bold, bright red Hudson River and Mississippi River have pre-sale estimates of $3 to $5 million. Her untitled painting, a precursor to her Infinity Rooms series, has a pre-sale estimate of $2.5 to $3.5 million. Now, stocks in the Gulf are trading mixed with corporate earnings and the Emirates lifting investor sentiment. Dubai and Abu Dhabi stocks are trading close to 0.5% higher, helped by robust first quarter earnings. Abu Dhabi Securities Exchange edged up fractionally, led by bank stocks, but Qatar Exchange pulled back after undergoing a wide sell-off. Meanwhile, stocks in Saudi Arabia also dipped nearly 0.5%. Now, in football, Borussia Dortmund have dominated Holstein Kiel 5-0 to reach the final of the German Cup. They will now clash with RB Leipzig in the final on May 13th in Berlin.
Dortmund struck 4 times in 16 first-half minutes, including a brace from Giovanni Reina. Marco Ruiz, Rafael Guerrero, and Jude Bellingham netted one each to seal Dortmund's win. Late goals from Eder Militao and Casemiro helped Real Madrid down Osasuna 2-0. Real are in second place with 74 points, just 2 behind leaders Atletico Madrid. Meanwhile, Aston Villa ascended to the 9th place in the English Premier League after edging Everton 2-1. Ollie Watkins and Anwar Al-Ghazi netted one each to give Aston only their 3rd win in the last 11 league games. Elsewhere, Chelsea beat Fulham 2-0 at Stamford Bridge to boost their grip on the Champions League place. The win gives the Blues a 6-point cushion over West Ham in the top 4. In other fixtures, Manchester City dominated Crystal Palace 2-0 while Brighton beat Leeds United 2-0.
In horse racing, Medina Spirit stormed to victory in the Kentucky Derby to deliver trainer Bob Baffert a record 7th win. It was the 4th Derby victory for the Hall of Fame jockey John Velasquez. Medina Spirit jumped to an early lead, fending off challenges down the stretch to cross the line first. The horse won by half a length, narrowly holding off Mandalone on the home stretch. Hot Rod Charlie finished 3rd, while last year's champion and early Derby favourite Essential Quality came in 4th. With over 50,000 fans, the race was the largest US sporting event since the start of the pandemic. And now let's have a look at how the weather is doing around the world. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News. Take care.